In our very first Forger video, we did an introduction to iPad sculpting, and we built a large creature's body that we were going to detail up. So in part 2, I'm going to take the head and the chest and the upper part of the body, and we're going to detail it up and add some larger muscles groups, the teeth, the eyes, and all of the detailing that we do by using the brushes that we give away. So grab the model and join us and see what you can do with Forger on the iPad. So the first thing you need to do is download this model. So this is the head that has been stripped off the body from the first video. And if you want to see the first video, go back and just have a look at the basics. It's up above me now, so you can follow that link. And also we'll provide a link at the end of this video to give you these models that I'm going to use in the video. So the first one you want is this one, so we'll call it Troll Head 1, and basically it's just the underlying shape that we're going to use to start this process off. So this will be the, once we get this done, this will be the head, the shoulders and the chest all done. So to begin with, the first thing I want to do is just take the clay button and just you move the sliders up and down till you're quite happy. So fairly low, quite high on low on the intensity, a bit lower than that. And just block out a bit more of the main muscle groups. Just quickly to remind you, in case you haven't seen the other videos, if you go to mesh, there's a remesh button here, and I'm going to be using that all the time. So I'm going to put the number to about 150-ish and do a remesh. And every time I say remesh, that's what I'm doing. It's just a simple button there. So I'm going to quickly turn off the grid now, so you know where the floor is, and I'll just lay down a few more of the larger muscles. And again, if you've got this model, you can follow along now and just try and replicate what I'm doing. If you don't know the muscle groups, which takes some learning, then you can do it this way by just following the shapes for now. That head there is quite misshaped at the back, so I'm going to hold down the smooth button here and smooth it down. But while I'm doing it, I'll move a little bit as well. So we're just trying to get this back to some sort of skull shape. There we go. And we'll maybe change that a little bit again later with the move tool. So back on the clay, smaller brush, higher intensity. And now we want to intrude into the model. So we're going to hold the plus and the minus. You can either tap until it stays on, like that, or you can basically, if you turn that one off and then just hold it down, and that does the same effect. It can just be the negative. So again, not holding it, and it adds, holding it, it's going to remove. So you can do it that way, or a quicker way, or a way that I use quite a lot, is just the crease tool to score into the model. And if your model starts to look fractured, or because the crease tool is pushing geometry in, then just hit remesh. At this point, it's not going to cause you any major problems if you remesh as much as you want. We just want to get the basics of this head down. We're going to have an ear here. We're going to have a line under the cheek. We'll have the cheek fold coming down here. Some lips, but rudimentary lips. And we will have teeth in this one. Maybe just a couple of nasty old teeth, and the tongue's going to be just a geometry inside here. We're not going to add separate tongue. So I think we've got enough there to start the next part, which is building it up a little bit. I'll just add a bit more volume with the clay tool. So I'm just thinking of where all the saggy skin might be. So his neck will be saggy. Have a bit more bulk on his shoulders here. Keep that intensity low, because you don't want to do, you don't want to go great big blobby strokes, make it look quite unnatural. So you'd be much better with muscles. It's much better to just bring them up nice and slowly, bit by bit. Go back to the move tool, and we'll make it big this time, because what we're going to do is just make sure that head is in the right location. So we'll make it a bit more evil like that, and bigger on the shoulders, keep the neck shape right. Let's bring his head down a bit there. There we go. So he's hunched over really, that's what we were after. And now because I wasn't looking at the side, see how narrow he's gone. So now we can just make sure we've got it right. The front, the back of the head. Always be turning the model around, because if you don't, you'll do exactly what I did there, is you'll work too much on one particular area and you'll lose your overall look of the head. And always be turning it around to the side and looking at it underneath. And remember, a face isn't flat, it bows out in the middle, it's like a cylinder. So you need to get this round curve here. Try and focus on seeing the curve around here. You can see there, it looks better now already, just because we've done that little bit, flatten the head down a bit. Now what we can do is we'll put some rudimentary eyes in first. You've seen this in the other videos. It's a good way to start off, because then if you've got the head in, the eyes in there, then you can use them to build around rather than trying to do it the other way. So I'll pull it quite far back there and then build it back up. So to add eyes, we just want a couple of spheres. So we go back, and then we can go to, let's go over here, objects, plus, and we'll just add a sphere. Now remember, the head already was only called a sphere, or on my version it's called a sphere. So you strike across and rename, we'll call that head, and we'll strike across here and rename, we'll call this eye. I won't say left or right yet. Okay, now you know it's going to be the wrong size and shape, so we go to the transform tool. Mine's at this end now, so don't forget you can move them. The buttons, I mean, so you can move these wherever. You can see me moving them back and forward. I move them all the time. So to change the scale, we'll go to scale here, and then back to move. Just getting it in the right location, roughly. So it's roughly where we want it. Move it inside the head, a little bit more smaller, something like that. How do you duplicate it? So how do we mirror it across to the other side? So remember, we've got symmetry on here. If you hold that symmetry button down, you can do a mirror here, and you want it across X, like so. What did I do? I just mirrored it. So what I needed to do first of all was duplicate it, hold it down, and then mirror it. And what that does is it moves the duplicate. Now you can merge these two together, but I won't for now, because we might want to break the symmetry and do it a little bit differently. So let's get back to that sculpting now. So we're going to now go back to the clay. And we'll go to, let's go up to mesh, and we'll go slightly higher on the remesh. Flush my history. That button that comes up there, it'll come up whenever you're running low on memory, so let that happen, and it'll clear out your memory for you. I think you may remember me saying this is a 2018 iPad, and although Apple don't give you the stats much on memory, this is a 4 gig of memory. The newer ones, if you're out in the market buying iPads today, the iPad Pros are like a 6 gig machine now, so it's good to know that, because obviously they, like I say, Apple don't tell you that, you know, what the RAM is in the iPads. Usually it's not a thing they want us to know about, really. So let's just get building up some of the flesh around the eye now. I want this nose to be quite high, quite, I wouldn't say evil looking, but I want it to be as if it's got some, you know, I don't want a traditional nose. I want it to look a little bit rotted down. And it is a troll, so we really need to think about ears at some point once we've done the basics of the eyes and the lips. You can see me jumping around a little bit, because as I see where a bit of an addition will help, then I'll jump to that area. I don't wait to go. I'm keeping it all around the face currently, but I will jump around a little bit. So you can see that's built up quite nicely now. So let's add those ears, or at least a little something that will become an ear. So really small brush, lowish intensity. It won't look good for the first few seconds, as you know, because it'll just look like a blob of geometry that we're adding. Because we're not doing any detailing, because we're not trying to get any surface detail, all we're doing is the primary shapes. We can remesh as much as we want. Once you start getting into some kind of detail, then that's when you've got to be careful, because you could do really nice detail and lose it, which we don't want to do. So in a moment I'm going to save this version, and that will be your version 2. So I just want to get this last little bit done here, and then we can move on after the save, so that we know at exactly what point we've got the model. So I'm just going to bulk that up. Now this is now the inflate tool, which obviously does what it says on the tin. It's just inflating that. Keep looking around. That ear looks good. A bit more volume on the eyebrows here. The eye's now okay, and it's sitting in place correctly. Let's put that tongue in actually there, like so. So it's a combination of using the move tool and that clay tool. Just gives us a little bit of a shape. If you pull it down in the middle, you'll get a sort of tongue shape there. You can see what I've done. I've pulled it back now. And we're not going to see that a lot, so we're not going to spend too much time on any detailing on that. There we go, that's fine. So we'll just remesh that, and it might say flush again, which it does. And if it doesn't lose too much detail, then that will become once we've smoothed it down. So I'm holding down the smooth button. Oops, that's on move. Let's go back to combination of clay and then smooth. Clay. There we go. And we're just getting rid of that nastiness that's been caused by the remesh. Okay, that will be just do the note on, maybe not take too much out. There you go. So we'll call that number 2, and remember how to save it. So we'll go up here and we want save, and we already know. There we go. It should have basically saved it for us now. Okay, so we'll start adding a little bit more detail, and then we'll add the teeth, and then we can get into some of the major shapes, some of the major detailing on the shapes. So just get a little bit more detail down here. I want that crease to go behind the lip, like so. And I'm going to put that right up at the top. And then I'm going to flatten some of this down. So I'll put some scrape marks in the skin there, and then basically now I'm going to flatten this along here, and this will give us what becomes the underside of the top lip. And that flat area is quite important, because it really shows the definition of the lip. You can see straight away that looks much more lip-like. So if you look at the shape of a lip, that curl under there and that tight edge on the top will really help you with the shapes of your lips. Let me just flatten off some of these edges to give us some planes, as we call them. So these are the way that the model's turning, and it can really help with the believability of the model if it's not just all blobby and smooth. So I'm just knocking off the round corners. And it looks quite sculptural if you do it like this. If I do that edge there and there, you can see how that looks more like stone than a character. But it's sometimes good just to get some of those planes knocked off a little bit. Flatten that ear down. Okay, so let's add a few teeth. Oh look, I'm just doing a little bit more. This is called noodling. So this is when you want to move on, but you keep seeing shapes that you want to change. I just love the interesting effects you can get with a flatten tool. It brings quite a different look to the model, and it definitely looks better. Okay, so let's add some teeth. They're going to be very simple shapes. So let's go back to our objects, and we'll just add. Let's just add a cube. We don't really need anything other than the cube. Strike across, rename it tooth, and then we'll go to our transform tool. Doesn't seem to want to do it. There we go. Bring it up to where we know. Now, well, obviously there's nothing worse than a fully symmetrical model, so I'm going to make the teeth very unsymmetrical or asymmetrical. So let's just, we've got the transform on, so we want to scale it down, the light button in the middle, give it some height, and flatten it down that way. And that's pretty much all we need for the start of a tooth. So I can put that up in the head for now. I'm just going to locate a couple of these and then I'm going to sculpt on them. So we'll give him a couple of initial teeth. And then I'm going to duplicate that one and just bring that across, but then rotate it quite badly so it looks like he's got like something going on with his tooth there that's making it a little bit crooked. It just gives a bit more character to the model. Gone a bit too far back. There we go. And then the main tool for this really I would say will be the flatten. So with a small brush size, small intensity. For now, you can just turn the head off with the eye there. You can even turn the eyes off, but we don't need to. So let's just make those teeth look like teeth now. You're going to need your remesh, and the remesh can be quite low. You can see, because what we want is that nice jagged effect for free. So instantly, that remesh gave us a kind of look that I was after straight away, just like broken, cracked teeth. So that's the first one done. And for this stage, you don't need to do much more than that really. That will probably give you enough to go with. If you want to do some scoring with the crease line, now would be a good time to do this sort of thing where you can put some striations in the tooth. So go back to the other tooth, first one, and remember we started with the flatten. So just knock off the corners. It's a great thing about digital sculpting, it's so quick to make the shapes that you want, and doing it on an iPad is even quicker, because you just literally just pick up your pen and your iPad and you're going. There we go. Don't forget we're building this channel. It's quite a new channel, and certainly for doing content on an iPad and doing any iPad sculpting. So if it is something that you're interested in, it would really help us if you hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to make sure you can let us know when we can let you know when we're uploading the next content. So let's put the head back on, and they look good straight away. So we'll just use the move tool on them, and we'll bring them together slightly. So move tool, there we go, and we should be able to get all the teeth we want from these two teeth. And if we need something specific like a canine, then we'll just manipulate the tooth that we make. So let's take this one, duplicate it, transform, move, That's good. So see how the pivot is down here instead of near the model itself. So if you want to change that, go up here to the transform tool, and then the transform tool, and just center the selection, and that brings your pivot back there. So that's quite straightforward. We'll duplicate that one, go back to objects, we'll duplicate that one, and we'll hit mirror, so I'll hold that down, we'll mirror it across X, and there you go, there's your other tooth done. So that's the two done quite quickly. Now remember, the pivot now is in the wrong place again for the second one, so back to tool, center selection. That's how simple that is. And we'll just change the tool, those tools with the move tool again. We'll make those a little bit sharper and pull them out to the side like so. So they're a bit more like a fang rather than an incisor, which is the front main tooth there. There we go. So we've got a couple of nice ones there. Go back to the first one. We'll duplicate it. And we'll transform it like so. Back to tool, center mesh, and we'll scale this one down a little bit, simply because the teeth at the bottom need to be slightly less prominent, and we'll rotate it as well, don't forget, because we didn't really do any detailing on the top. So, and then back to object, duplicate, move, rotate a little bit, duplicate, move. Okay, we'll make this one a bit weirder, like it's broken, or there's a gap maybe. Yeah, like so. That will do it. And there we go. We've got enough of I might put more teeth down here at the side later, but it's given us enough to work with there to get going on it. So what I'll do is now I'll save this model again. So if you remember how to do it, so click here, save incremental, overwrite. We don't want to do this. Must be careful. Incrementally save the scene would overwrite a previously saved one. So what would you like to do? I want to save as, and then forget. Just be careful when you're saving. We'll call it 004. There we go. During this session I did overwrite one, so it is very easy to do. So back to objects, we'll leave the teeth all as separates at the moment. And now on the head, let's break the symmetry now. So we'll turn symmetry off here at the top, and we'll just use the move tool, and we'll start thinking about how can we make him look like he's not like a symmetrical CG creature really, so he's not looking natural. So I'm going to shut down one side of the face, bring it up, and then drop the other one, maybe open the eye a little bit on the other one. Now from now on, nothing's going to be done symmetrically, so it basically means that we have to do a bit more work, but instantly your character will come alive. If his jaw was swinging to the side there, that would help. And what we'll do is we'll drop one shoulder and higher the other shoulder, so that and even bring one forward and one back. And you can work on the posing in other programs as well. Don't forget to, obviously if you're only sticking with Forger, then you're limited to these sort of tools, but if you take this anywhere else, you can really pose this up in a really crazy way as well, and go as far as you want with it. There we go. So it's got a bit of life now, as in it's just that tiny little bit of changing the symmetry brings the character to life. It's always a winner. Excuse me. So let's go to a higher resolution now. So we'll go objects, and we'll just double check we're on the head. That's a good start. Go to mesh, and then instead of doing this, the resolution, we're going to subdivide once. So we're going to hit that, and that now times it all, times the polygons by 4. So you'll find now we'll stop remeshing for a while and we'll just use this. Because the polygons are so much higher now, when you start detailing, or this pass of detailing, you'll see that it looks much better, and it means you can get your creases in now and some of your skin detail, which makes for a much better model at this stage. So we will do less remeshing now, because once we start getting into any of this detailing, if we start doing a remesh, there's always a chance that we might lose some of what we've done. So try and make sure that you wait until this point to do it. I'm just going to move that a little bit, and then we'll go back to clay, small brush, decent intensity, and we're now going to build up around this eye, and we can smooth this down again in a moment. There we go. I will smooth it now. And if we close it down a bit, this is always a good, okay, so by sculpting it and it closes it down, then you can use the move tool and pull it back up. And do you see how tight it goes now? And that's because you're creasing the geometry underneath itself. So if I do it again here, so pull it up, maybe use the crease tool in here, and then pull it back down again, it kind of squashes everything back together. So that would be a tip for any digital sculpting, really, is using the tools. You can see that eye looks a little meaner and a little bit tighter, so that's quite helpful. Let's just pull this little dimple here under the nose. This is called the philtrum. We do want one. I don't know whether this creature should have one, but he's having one now. So I'm kind of designing this guy on the fly. Looks more like an ape at the moment. So, but it's not a bad thing if it comes to it, and he turns out to be more ape-like. It's quite an achievement, I think. So let's go back to the crease tool, and we'll carry on adding small brush, decent intensity. Keep thinking about the different areas that need that detailing. So inside the ear, just move that out of the way. Make sure those creases are nice under the cheek and up to the nose. We're not going to do too much more on the neck. The neck worked out quite well, really. So I'm going to use some brushes for some surface detailing in a moment. That's looking quite nice underneath there. Again, you can pull that with the move tool now if you want, and it will be tucking it under, adds a really nice effect. Okay, so let's add some surface detailing with these alpha brushes here. So if you haven't got these alpha brushes, you can get them free by subscribing. So there's a full pack. If you look above now, there's a link to our site where you can grab them. And I'm just going to use this one here, which is a great skin one. And then I'm going to go and start on the top of the head. We already know it's quite a high subdivision. We've put the subdivision up once. So low intensity, let's just see what happens when we draw across here. You can see I'm being really careful now. Actually, I didn't put the brush on, put standard on. Put it back on. So it's standard brush, that alpha, and then low here and low here, and just see what happens. Lower again. You can see it's starting to give us some nice surface detail there. And if you want to do it the opposite way, don't forget you can hold the minus down and it'll give you an intrude. So go on the top, so positive, hold that down, negative. And that way you can get quite an interesting look. So I'm just going to keep changing the sizes. And what we're doing now is we're just adding kind of random skin surface detail. And I'm changing it from positive to negative. Let's just add a bit more up here on the lip as we come round, so some lip detail. And see when I'm going in circles, that's because I want to do lots of different kind of scraped skin effects. You can see it close up. It gives you a nice rough skin. Again, the minus gives you that indent. We'll do one pass with this brush, and then we'll go and put some pimples and spots and creases and that kind of thing. So you can take a lot more time over this if you feel you need to. Just add in the, you know, as much as you feel is suitable for your model. I'm not really taking any amount of time over it. I'm just trying to cover the whole surface. If you go too far, just bring it back with the smooth. See me going too far and then bringing it back. And then let's just get a nice crisscross across here. You can see how that looks pretty much like wrinkled skin. So try and follow the folds of how the skin is, or what you'll get is you'll get it looking very, very fake. And then don't forget to do the minus as well, so it's where the skin's wrinkling in. Again, too much, pull it back with the smooth. You see it's coming in quite nicely already. Just pull it back. Just covering wherever we can for this first one. Pull it back. And remember, when I'm saying pull it back, I mean knock it back a little bit with the smooth tool. And let's get loads across the back up here. Again, don't forget this is not symmetrical anymore, so you have to do both sides. That's quite a bit on there. And now we'll pick another one. In fact, that's a bit too aggressive down here, so I'm going to smooth that down a bit. Looked fine until I got up close to it. Okay, so he's looking good. So now we want some pimply effects. So we'll use something like this. And this can be used in several different ways. So this can give us a few more dots and pimples, or you can do oops, did a smooth there. You can do the negative, and that will give you pores. So pores on the skin, and that's quite useful. Just looks like skin damage all over. It's like really pockmarked skin. Put a lot of that around the front here. This one, which is our fine brush for skin. You see, this is probably the best way. Let's try and show you a nice clean patch of it. There we go. So this one, the crisscross one, gives you a really fine skin there. I'd encourage you to make your own alpha brushes. I wouldn't use any standard ones. Other, if you're learning with mine, that's fine. But the quicker you learn how to make them yourself, the quicker you'll get individual. The look will become individual on your models and on your creations. Try not to use too many of other people's as you get better. And that's the same with any package really, because you start to see a particular brush being used, and then you just see it everywhere. Then you can't unsee it once you've seen it. So don't let yourself fall into that trap. So by all means use these to get yourself going, but as soon as you know how to do it, then do it yourself. So let's have a look at, let's put some bit more fine detail in now. So using the clay brush, very, very small brush now. And let's just go, I'm going to do some negative and some positive. So probably a little bit too small there. Use the trusty clay. And all I'm doing now is just adding in some surface detail, some like pot marks and little creases, and a few more interesting visual bits of visual interest, like scrapes across the skin. Maybe even do a couple of veins, so you can do veins like this with this brush. So if you feel like if your creature needs veins coming up the neck, then small brush, high intensity, and you can do it like that. Let's just check if the tools. Yeah, so I was looking at the clay brush to see if it was too dotty, but it's not, as in the stroke, but it looks fine. So I'm just going to keep doing that. Won't put too many of these in, and I won't go too large like that. Keep undoing. You can see me undoing where I try it, and it's just a little bit too big. There we go. That's about right. So we can put a few of these in. If you ever want a scar, that's a great way to do a scar, is just like that. So that's using the clay brush and then negative it away and then build the edges of the scar up. So that will always help. Let's get that eye looking right. So again, we're just doing final details now, and then we'll call it a day for this video, and we'll on a later video we'll take this exact model and we will do a paint session on it, and that'll be you'll be well on the way then to understanding a good majority of Forger. If you followed all of the videos that we've done, you probably know most of the tools now. There we go. Okay, so we'll call that one done for now. There's a little bit more detailing to be done on the back, so I might do that next, but you probably know all of the tools now. So I'll save this model as well now, and you can have this exact one, so you can have a look at it and see where I got to in the time that we had, and then see if you can take it a little bit further and finish all of these areas that don't have the detailing. And then by all means, we've got a new iPad sculpting forum now, or a group, a Facebook group, so please join us on there and start posting what you're making with these from these videos, and share the results, and then we can build a little community around this kind of software.